against discrimination, degradation of resource bases, and armed conflict. In the interest of clarity, the term indigenous, as used in the Philippines, refers to ethno-linguistic groups or subgroups that maintain independence throughout the colonial era. They are unique social and cultural groups with ancestral links to the lands and natural resources where they live, inhabit, or have been displaced. In short, they have authorities in all of their ancestral domains. The term indigenous, when applied in the Philippine population, can be a deceptive misnomer, connoting alien migrant populations who have been, over time, become majority ethno-linguistic and cultural group in the land and thereby pushing indigents to the fringes of socio-cultural inclusion. The indigenous peoples, to a large extent forgotten by the government, are in the midst of problems. Physical isolation does not shield them from being caught in the crossfire in the ongoing armed conflicts in the country. Many suffered as internally displaced persons, and some killed or detained and tortured as suspected members of the armed opposition groups. Lack of access to basic social services, education, sustainable livelihood, farm-to-market roads, and health services contribute to their continuing poverty. These are their struggles against development aggression, which lead to lost ancestral domain and self-determination as well as to environmental destruction are met with harassment and human rights violation, including political killings.
Now, what are we gonna do to preserve them? First is to focus on the priorities in the indigenous peoples. They can't have a choice in their own way of living, be control over their own education, healthcare, and so on, unless their lands are secure. That's the overwhelming priority. All other issues are secondary. If their land rights are recognized, the tribal people thrive. Second is to protect the IP's ancestral land. Indigenous people in the Philippines face a range of threats from what they frequently describe as development aggression. As they struggle to defend their land, much of it is in areas of forest or mountain that are rich in natural resources and so conflict often arise with companies. Many of them are based outside the Philippines who want to exploit those resources, mostly without the consent of the indigenous people. They took advantage to the IPs because they know that the IPs don't have the power to protect their ancestral land. So, we must help the IPs to protect their ancestral land because it means a lot to them. And that's the only place where they can live comfortably. Without land, indigenous peoples have no livelihood, no identity, and no means of survival. Third is to encourage the government to fulfill wider rights. There is a human right to education and a human right to an adequate standard of living, and there is also a right to development. The right to be included in the development process which affect you. The right to development includes the fulfillment of civil, political, economic, social, cultural rights, and freedoms. And the last is raising public awareness. I believe that building public awareness is very beneficial and significant for the indigenous people and the indigenous community. This is a responsibility for all. There is a lot of mistrust for good reason. But how we inform ourselves and understand our own complicity in consumption and policies that sustains the need for production, profit, and exploitation is absolutely necessary. We can then begin to understand the impact on indigenous peoples, their territories, and land. As an indigenous person, our relationship to the land is the heart and soul of who we are, our identity, and our survival.
To conclude everything, in today's generation, we tend to disregard the IPs because we thought that they are different, without knowing their everyday suffering. Let me tell you something. Before we're born in this world, the indigenous people are already living their lives. They live peacefully and happily in their respective ancestral domain, not until we greedy people came in the picture. We tend to steal their lands to build buildings and other big establishments. We stole their rights to live in their ancestral domain where they originally belong. Indigenous people can protect their lives and their ancestral domain on their own, so we need to help them. The more voices the government hear, the more chances we can give them back their lives. It's not too late to help them. We made this advocacy think, reflect, and respect to wake us up in our selfishness. It's time to raise our voice to the IPs who needed us. The more voices it takes, the more chances we can help them. Because I strongly believe that the IPs are the key to our national identity, the missing link to the highly contested Filipino portrait, and this is not because they are unique, but rather they are our living memories, a memory of a pre-colonial Philippine that has persisted and survived through centuries of colonial power, struggle, and modernization.